in terms of bringing about the transformation. So keep up the great work, guys.
Thank you very much. Remember, on the 19th of January, if you owed me US $1 million, on the 23rd, it was US 1 million RTGS. Obviously, it was tears of joy on my side. But what did it mean to the person who was owed US 1 million? Let's hear more from Advocate. Advocate, this judgment.
Yes, please.
Just from Norway, from a millionaire,
Yeah.
I owe you 1 million in RTGS.
You're
The
right.
following day, up to 2 days later, it's now in RTGS.
Yeah.
Does it make any business sense?
All right. So we have what we call legal sense. In other words, what does the law say? Then we also have what you're talking about, the business sense.
Yes.
That if we're $1 million in our books, and now we have to look at it as 1 million RTGS, is it the same? Of course, the answer is no. So from a legal sense, well, what I would say is the court was interpreting according to it what is the law. In other words, what's the legal position? So the duty of the law of the court is to simply express the legal position. Then obviously for business people, you need to be able to really understand what are the implications in terms of this outcome. Because you see, one of the things that was happening is many companies had judgments which were in their favor in United States dollars. Then some would actually pursue instructing the sheriff to recover the money in United States dollars. But the sheriff's office was also beginning to actually say, no, we'll simply recover it 1:1. Because the argument is, if your judgment is not saying $1 million to be paid in the bank rate, they will not actually do that.
Okay.
So what you find now is, like what you're literally saying, it's going to be tears of joy and tears of pain. But tears of joy is in respect of people who actually had borrowed.
Yeah.
So, for example, you're owing a mortgage. You had a mortgage for your property.
Yeah.
Let's say it was about 100,000 or 200,000. Multiply the rate. You see, one of the things that happens is effectively the government would have actually bought a house for you. That's what would have happened. So what you find now is it's a return to 2008, where many people literally took properties for free because of hyperinflation. But now what you find is it's a transition from a regime whereby we used to believe that it was the US dollar. The next it was US dollar and the bond note, which is a par rate. Then also, now we have got an environment where we're saying it's a US dollar and RTGS 1:1, but in reality we know that inflation is actually made nonsense of whatever arrangement in terms of saying these currencies are at par. So, yeah, like what you're saying, obviously for many businesses, I think they'll actually feel it because it will be a significant loss. But I also believe that from a business perspective, it's very critical to plan with clarity as to what is the effect. Now that we know that whatever that we owed before the effective date is now going to be in RTGS, can we still say that we have got US dollars? On the ground, you don't have US dollars. But in principle, we used to think that you had US dollars. So I think one of the things that we need to look at is the effects of the judgment. Besides, of course, making people cry, I think the effect also for the business is to be able to see now that we can't talk about US dollars anymore, especially if the debts were affected by the statutory instrument SI 33 of 2019.
But let's say I am a banker.
Yes, please.
And with the example that you gave about mortgage.
Yes, please.
Half of my clients, are on mortgage.
You're right.
And now, because of this judgment, am I going to survive?
You see what? Going back to business is going to be ups and down, meaning it's actually time to go back into the boardroom and to re-strategize. Because the bulk of the times, even if you're going to be paid whatever that the people are going to say that they owed, on the ground you won't be able to recover anything. Because the whole idea of banks is to be able to lend at an interest and recover value. And once the interests are no longer making sense, and right now in terms of the hyperinflation environment, you can't even talk about lending. So now effectively, banks are going to suffer seriously. Because you see now, if someone is owing $1 million, now they are owing you less than, I think, 50,000 US dollars. So you see now, I think many banks will really suffer because many banks had also a very high book in terms of mortgages. But not only that, you see, we also got pension funds.
Yeah.
You see, pension funds, they thrive on collecting money and once they collect money, they're supposed to invest it. Once they invest it, when the time is due, they're supposed to pay the beneficiaries. So it's fine now that many pension funds are going to struggle because whatever they are holding is not going to make any legal sense. No, not legal sense. It's not going to make any economic sense. So now, if you've got $1 billion and you play with the rate, you can actually see that you don't have anything. So many pension funds obviously would try to invest in properties and so forth. But now, see, with this environment, very few people are also now going to be reluctant to dispose of their properties, especially in a regime whereby you're supposed to dispose your property in local currency. So yeah, I think the judgment has got serious effects, especially on the business sector, even individuals. Assuming you lended someone your money, if it gives someone money, now they're telling you, I don't owe you US dollars, I owe you RTGS. So you find, even if you want to decide to litigate, it's now becoming difficult. So you see now more and more people are going to decide to adopt diplomacy. Because the moment you file out and cause someone to be issued, someone is going to immediately raise a defense that whatever that you're claiming is now RTGS. So, yeah.
But don't you think for pension companies, it was calmer because you see quite a lot, people put buying or investing in pensions and policies, but at the end of the day, they don't really get the value of it. You end up seeing advocate buying the Lamborghini, latest cars, but when I go and claim the money that I'm supposed to be given, I've been putting money for maybe 20 or so years.
You're right.
But at the end of the day, I don't benefit that much.
You're
What's
right.
your view on that?
I think we're actually going back to 2008, where despite the amount of years that you have spent contributing, in 2008, when we had that shift, many people actually lost out. So you see, in other words, the pension funds also stand to benefit. Because if they were holding your 20,000 US dollars, tomorrow they will send you an account with 20,000 RTGS. And you can't do anything. You can't sue them. So you see now, the pensions companies, they tend to benefit anyway during this time. Because you see, they are benefiting from the statutory framework. Because in a way, it's actually doing the work for them. But you see, these pension companies, the bulk of them, they own buildings in town. They invest in massive properties. And the time that they're actually doing that is the time when your money can buy. And when your money can no longer buy, they want to pretend as if they don't know what happened to your money, which is what I think is quite on the unfortunate side. So what I would say is the law, as confirmed by the Supreme Court, is going to have many victims, but it's also going to have people who are going to succeed. But effectively, the people who are actually the greatest losers in this environment are lenders. And the greatest beneficiaries in this environment are borrowers. So right now, I've met sort of people who are actually celebrating that they owed banks 300,000. So now, if you're saying you're supposed to pay, let's say 10,000 per month as part of your repayment, I can still insist on that. But you see, this thing is also going to be a bit unfair on land developers. So let's say you have sold your property on terms, and you're supposed to be paying it over a period of, let's say, 5 years, 10 years. Then there is a quantified amount. Let's say you're supposed to pay 200,000, and the period hasn't changed. So you find that land developers are also going to be exposed thoroughly. Because you see, they were selling properties on installments, and effectively now, if you've got people who armed with the judgment, we're just saying whatever there was in USD as an effective date is going to be RTGS. So effectively, they can properly make an RTGS transfer of the entire balance, and you have to accept it as full and final settlement of whatever that you actually said they were owing you. So you see now, it's going to affect seriously the people who had lended, and it's going to benefit seriously the people who had borrowed, especially if they've got money to clear. Well, you see, obviously on the ground, now, you can't deny the black market. Of course, we say it's illegal, but this is the reality. So you see now, if you're going to use the parallel market rate to evaluate what was the contract and what was the actual, as now, you actually see there's a serious gap, there's a serious deficiency. Obviously, that was the argument which was also being advanced by counsel for the other party. Say, guys, this is not fair, because now I'm not going to be able to get value, at least if there's any interbank rate. But you see now, the statutory framework doesn't provide for an interbank rate when it comes to USD balances. It's USD, if it's 1,000 USD, it's 1,000 RTGS. So now I think the greater work has to go to companies in terms of strategic planning. Really, because the remedy now is going to be a lot of planning in terms of charting your course with this dispensation. How best can we plan our affairs? Because you can't continue to pretend as if everything is normal when, in actual fact, things are not normal.
But looking at the judgment
Yes,
and the
please.
government's position,
Yeah.
were the losers or the winners?
You see, the government is also owed. Local authorities are owed in terms of rates. The government is owed in terms of land. The people who bought land from the state. So that similar judgment is also going to affect even the state itself. So the private citizens are affected. Then the government itself is also affected somehow. But obviously, they are the greatest losers in any dispensation. But like I'd said, I think some of the greatest losers in this dispensation are people who had significantly lended. Then the greatest beneficiaries in this dispensation are people with significantly borrowed in this environment. But of course, if you don't have the money to still repay, you can actually be in trouble. So you find more and more companies, especially if they are into land, one of the things that they will do is to move towards repossession if you don't perform. Because it's now better for us to recover our land, then we can sell at a redenominated amount. So yeah, I think there are significant losers and there are significant beneficiaries in this. I wish you'd actually taken a mortgage. You could have benefited, my brother.
Let's keep it. But, advocate.
Yes.
If I am a foreigner,
Yes,
and I want to invest in Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
or I was about to invest in Zimbabwe, assuming that on the 19th of January, I send you 1 million
Yep.
United States dollars.
Yes, please.
On the 25th, how much was it of the same month?
Yeah. No, I get it. From an investment perspective, it's very critical. But you see, like I said, there's the legal dimension and there's the business dimension. However, the role of government as well is also to make policies that make sense. Because you see, the question is, not even talking about foreigners, yourself. If I'm going to give you 5,000 US dollars right now, which bank are you going to deposit that money? Chances are that you won't, because you don't have confidence in the system. So I believe the role of government should be to create the conditions and the atmosphere in terms of policies, but not just policies, the legislation. That is critical in terms of inspiring confidence in foreigners. Because, you see, if we don't have confidence in our own system, we can't expect foreigners to have confidence in our own systems. So the problem really is not even the Supreme Court judgment. It's not even the Supreme Court judgment. Because what the Supreme Court is simply saying, ladies and gentlemen, this is the law. Remember the separation of powers. The court is simply saying, this is the law. So the question still goes back to the lawmakers. Guys, is this feasible? Is this the atmosphere that's going to inspire more and more people to invest their money in Zimbabwe? So for example, let's say you'd invested $1 billion in Zimbabwe, and you're being told that your money is 1 billion RTGS. So you see, you can actually wake up a loser because of a statutory framework.
Yes, but then, okay, how then can learned people, give us a judgment that affects us so much from the way that you are saying? I'm just trying to put you in a corner. Where are we going? Does that make any sense?
All right, quickly, I need to protect the court.
Yeah.
The role of the Supreme Court is not to make the law, as it were. Of course, the courts make laws by how they interpret the legal positions. But you see, one of the positions you find from the judgment of the Supreme Court is simply adopting a literal rule of interpretation. In other words, if we're going to read the statute, what is the statute literally saying? So the Supreme Court is not inventing anything. It's simply confirming what's there. Meaning where there was doubt is the interpretation. The Supreme Court is simply saying this is the position. So I believe the learned court simply interpreted what was there. Of course, I'm aware of some challenges to the judgment. There's an application for leave, alternatively for direct access to the Concord. But, of course, the position as we have right now is we've got a judgment as we speak. And it's only until when it's set aside by a superior court that we're going to have a different narrative. But for the meantime, this is the position that is actually obtaining. But I think the issue really goes back to policies.
Yeah.
Beyond the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has no capacity to actually say, no, we can't do this. Well, this is the law. But the issue goes back to the policymakers. Are the policies that are making inspiring confidence? Are the policies that are making likely to attract more people or repel investors? Because, mind you, this is not even legal. But when I talk about investment, there are two things that you're considering. Number one, it's risk. And number two, is return. So where there's a higher risk and low return, people are likely to withhold their money. But I think the focus now should be to create a framework where there's more returns and less of risk. But obviously, I'm aware that there's been conversations around re-dollarizing and so forth. On the ground, you know that the economy is re-dollarizing.
Yeah.
But of course, the statutory framework is not recognizing that. Though you find some policies being taken in a direction towards re-dollarization. Your voting duty is being paid in forex. Cars have to be paid the duty in forex. And if you are disposing of your house, if you are not able to prove how the money moved, there's an assumption that you sold the property in US dollars. So in a way, there's a recognition that the market is re-dollarizing. And so now it still goes back to the policymakers to really look at it, look at the effect, and decide the course as to what needs to happen. But Parliament has done its part, the Supreme Court has done its part in terms of interpreting the legal and relevant legal positions.
But in your own view, the policy from Parliament to the executive, do you think in between there are legal advisors that gives them advice on the implications of some of the policies that they were putting on the table? You know, we know in Parliament there is the whipping system where any policy, can be adopted, a motion can be adopted because of the majority that is there. What's your view on that, so that maybe in the long run we try and avoid such kind of bad policies that we are always at the end putting statutory instruments to correct the wrongs?
You see what, the conversation doesn't start in Parliament, because you see, Parliament is giving life to a framework that has been discussed elsewhere. So we discuss this maybe at party level, we discuss this maybe at coffee meetings, we discuss these things at cabinet, we discuss these things at various forums. But when Parliament is now seized, essentially the role of Parliament is now to give life to that, because some of these things are enacted against a certain background.
Yeah.
They're trying to arrest a certain situation. So you see, one of the problems that we have in the country is, for a long time we're running the gospel that the US dollar is 1:1 with the bond, which we know overall is not correct. That's heresy.
Yeah.
So for a long time that was the position. But you see, reality-wise, it cannot be sustainable. That's why one of the areas where they actually plug in quickly was the issue of importation of vehicles. So just pay your 1,300 at the border. Then you go and pay with Eco Cash.
Yeah.
Your 1,300 for a vehicle. Yeah, so I would like to believe that the actual advisors, some way, somehow, otherwise I don't think decisions of this magnitude can also be done without the relevant considerations. But again, if an advisor, your role is simply to advise. Whether or not the advice is taken, that's something else. But I think the role gradually of all of us is to be able to create an enabling environment where business has to make business sense. In other words, you need to decide whether to stay in business. And why? Because it's going to make business sense, rather than to close in order for it to make sense. So I believe the guys and ladies who are involved in the process of advising, they should also be continuing to review some of the implications and ensure that more and more people can also be cautioned along the way. Because you see, right now, unfortunately, what you find is, if you were owed salaries for a long time, let's say you're being owed $10,000 US dollars in salaries, what it effectively means, you're owed 10,000 RTGS, which is now less than what? Less than $500 as we speak, of course, using the other rate. So, I think there are advisors somewhere. I'm not to be privy really to how some of these things are done, but certainly I would like to believe there are advisors. But again, I want to believe that we should constantly be making decisions with a full understanding and also with a full view of the potential repercussions in terms of how it's going to affect the people.
Yeah, but looking at this judgment,
Yes.
where do you think we are going business-wise?
Business-wise, again, the problem is not even the Supreme Court judgment. I need to clarify that.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court judgment is okay. The problem is the legal framework. That's the problem. But again, it's a legal framework against an economic framework. So there are several factors that are actually coming into play. So for example, let's say we are going to re-dollarize. The question is, does the government have the US dollars to pay the people? And I think your answer is as good as mine. They don't. Now, so what do you do if you don't have the US dollars to actually clear the obligations? Sometimes you have to resort to some things like this. Come on, we can always print money. We can always create money. So you see, one of the problems for a long period of time is with more money in circulation, which was not practically self-supported by anything. So I think this is one of the measures, of course not the best measures, which was being taken to try to cure the situation whereby the market was re-dollarizing in the absence of the US dollars to actually sustain the US dollar balances. Suppose you find We're being told for a long time that the bond is 1:1 with the US dollars, but you see, we have got more of the bond and less of the US dollars. And effectively, the market doesn't lie. Whatever you're seeing in the market is still a reflection of how the economy is performing.
When the new dispensation came into power,
Yep.
there was a lot of talk of investors, knocking doors on Zimbabwe. And then now, a year later, we have this kind of a judgment. Do you think it still inspires confidence to someone who is carrying a briefcase in coming to Zimbabwe to invest?
All right, so again, we go back to the issue. The problem is not the Supreme Court judgment. The problem is just a legal framework, which is simply creating a scenario whereby your 1 million is now 1 million RTGS. So the court really is simply saying what the law is. However, when it comes to investment, remember what I was talking about. Of course, I'm not an economist, but if I ask you to put your money, one of the things you ask me is what is the risk and what is the benefit? So every person wants to know what is the risk and what's the benefit. But you see, now there's several sectors that are being allowed to actually trade in forex. Mining is one of them, for example. Because you see, many people who are coming in with money, they want to put it in the extractives because of the immediate benefit that it comes. But what I think, and it applies to everyone, regardless of political orientation, is to focus really on creating an enabling environment where, if you're holding 1 million today, my brother, you should think of Zimbabwe as an investment destination. If you want to buy your property, you don't buy in South Africa, you don't buy in the United States, you buy in Zimbabwe, because after every month, you're able to recover something. But you see now, look at the rentals. Now, on the ground, of course, people are charging in forex, but legally, you can't charge in forex. And I actually read somewhere where there was a threat to deal with business that are still charging in forex. Because what you find now is businesses are trying to survive. It's really a fight for survival. So you've got a legal framework. Then you've got a real framework. Because you see, many businesses in the country, they are buying their raw materials outside and they have to buy them in forex. Then you have to sell that very same product in local currency. And that process of shifting of currencies, to be honest, is not an easy one. Because the RBC is not necessarily giving all those people the US dollars they need for their imports. So you find many more businesses are actually going back into the illegal market to gain the forex. Why? Because I think it's also now a question of survival. So what I really think is for policymakers to really take time, reflect, also engage business in terms of the potential consequences of some of these policies.
But you keep on referring back to the legal framework.
Yeah.
What then can be done to that animal that you are calling
the legal
framework so that you and me at least can have confidence in? So I wake up tomorrow and say I have 1,000 in my account and it's going to be 1,000. I should sit down and plan that legal framework. What can be done?
You see what's my brother? Laws, they don't make themselves. Laws don't just wake up. Laws are created by the people we put in positions. So you elect an MP, you elect whoever. Their role, if they are a legislative member, their role is to contribute towards the legal discourse. So it goes back to the people who are in positions where they make the laws. What is the conversation that they're having? Are they having conversations in full view of these things? Because laws are put in place by the people that we appoint into those positions of responsibility. So that's one thing we don't have to ignore. So if we make you an MP tomorrow, your role is to ensure that you debate some of these things. Does it make legal sense? What is the effect? So those things. But you see, several laws go through Parliament, and you still say, no, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. But again, it goes back to the people who are making the laws.
But what kind of a law do you expect from someone who is 21 years old, a Zimbabwean, and a registered voter, to come and then pass a law, that has got, good, effect on you and me?
All right. I think
it actually means the people that we are electing to put in parliament, some of them do not even understand the kind of things that we're talking about.
You see what's one of the challenges we have is I don't think people
not necessarily that everyone should be a lawyer.
No, you don't necessarily have to be. You don't necessarily have to be.
Yeah.
But you see, one of the mistakes we have is we think the role of parliamentarians is to repair a road, or to repair,
or to bury someone,
or to bury someone, or to provide an ambulance when your wife is pregnant. That's wrong. So you see, for a long period of time, we've been having elections without adequate understanding of the role of a parliamentarian. So the role of a parliamentarian is not to go and sing in parliament. The role of a parliamentarian is not just go and make noise in parliament. The role of a parliamentarian is not go and just walk out in parliament. The role of a parliamentarian is to contribute towards the legislation. That's very critical. So regardless of age, what we need to focus on is to focus on building the ideal lawmaker. In other words, a person who has an understanding, a global understanding of what Zimbabwe needs to go forward, which is what I think is critical, the raw material. It also contributes ultimately for the final product that we want to see. But what I'll go back to say is simple. Laws, they don't just come out of a vacuum. They come out like of a background. Like we discussed today and say, we need to plug 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next thing, how do we do it? We need a legislative framework. The AG office is involved in drafting the draft. It goes through the various stages of parliament. Eventually, it becomes a law. So now what we have with SI 33, again, this is something that, like I had explained, is coming against a background where there's so much noise about US dollars. At one point in time, you remember, many shops were actually saying, we no longer accept bond notes.
Yeah.
We just want US dollars. So now, the country is no US dollars. People are saying, we can't accept bond notes. And the next thing, what do you do? People want to buy. People want fuel. People want to travel. People want to transact. What do you do? You also come up with the relevant instruments that can cure that. But obviously, every instrument has got its good side and also has got its negative side.
Going back to the Supreme Court judgment,
Yes, please.
On the position of losers, the Supreme Court is wrong.
Yeah.
Because it is the Supreme Court of in the land.
Yes, please.
That's the end. You cannot appeal.
All right. So now, like I indicated, there's a challenge.
Okay.
The guys who lost in this case, they are applying for leave. They want to challenge it before the Concourt. So what they want is leave or alternatively direct access to the Concourt. So now we want to see what happens at the Concourt in terms of testing this judgment. But what I can tell you is whatever the outcome is also going to be very significant.
Yeah.
So if the challenge is dismissed, it simply means the position has been confirmed. If it's granted, it means we now have got a different dispensation, the confirmation of a different dispensation by the Apex Court.
Let's put the legal framework aside.
Yeah.
Morally, don't you think it was fair just to say, if you owe me $1 million United States dollars, pay me in that currency? If I owe you in RTGS, let's settle in that.
So you see, my brother, one of the things that I was taught by my professor, Prof. Madugo, is the concept of fairness. So what is fair to one is not necessarily fair to another. So, you see, that's one of the problematic areas. So fairness is actually very difficult to obtain it. In fact, that's one of the arguments which was being advanced, the equity argument. It's not fair. I gave you this. At least you should give me that.
Yeah.
But you see, it's one thing for what the law says, and it's another thing whether or not it's going to be favorable to your side. So, but the role of the court is to simply interpret what the law says. But of course, there are obviously side effects. Some will win, some will lose. But the question is, what does the law say? So the focus of the court is, what is the legal interpretation? Then the issue that people will lose out, that's also another issue. But the real issue is, what is the meaning of this particular law? Then its effects or otherwise becomes, of course, another thing at all. Yeah, but obviously, trust me, that many people are going to take advantage of this. So the moral argument will work outside the legal system where, like, $1,000 now. That's the moral.
I even wanted to ask you my follow-up question that we've talked about business, we've talked about investors, we've talked about government, we've talked about what the law says.
Yeah.
Between you and me, I owe you 1,000. What does this mean?
Yeah.
Am I also forced to, with the judgment to give you 1,000 when I owe you?
Legally, you're actually forced to take 1,000 RTGS or even equation. So now, regardless of the amount, the deciding issue is the effective date. The effective date is 22 February 2019. That's the effective date. So the effective date is going to be the decisive issue. So what were you owed as at 22 Feb? Was it known, like, Did we know how much it was? Yes, we knew. It was 1 million RTGS. Did you even have a judgment? Yes, I'd actually gotten a judgment from the court. Even the Supreme Court had said you deserve this man. But now, the issue is on that effective date, as long as we knew that you were owed and the extent of the indebtedness, the character of the currency that was applying, it means you need to provide your RTGS bank account. so that's the law.
Okay. Looking at the law, Zimbabwe owes the IMF.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
All right, you still owe that thing won't apply to the IMF now. You actually have to pay in US dollars. So you see, so the various international organizations that are actually paying salaries in US dollars. I think you know several, because these guys are simply saying we don't recognize your currency. So right now, go to the US embassy to apply for a visa. They will tell you we want clean US dollar notes.
Yeah.
Because they are not bound by all those things. Yeah, so for the IMF date, yeah, we need to send in the real currency.
Here you are, viewers. We are talking about the implications of the Supreme Court judgment, which said if you owe someone in United States dollars with effect from the said date, it was now RTGS, or like what advocate said, you can pay in eco cash. Advocate, your last words to the viewers.
You know what? I think it's critical to invest in good advice, especially legal advice. It helps in the sense that you get to protect your interests. I've seen several opinions circulating on social media. Yeah, let's get the right advice, especially the advice that we don't want to hear, like you now have to accept RTGS. Yeah, because it's better to plan with the truth in mind than to plan with the lie in mind. It does help. Yeah, but obviously my plea will be to policymakers to continue reviewing policies and ensure that they will inspire investor confidence. Because trust me, this country has too much potential. We have got the sun, several thousands of hours of the sun every time. So we should be able to get significant investment in renewable energy. So right now, tell me, even if you have $20 million, would you invest in a solar farm where you know that your $20 million will be paid in RTGS? No, you won't. So right now, even if you want to resurface another bike bridge and you know you're going to get your money in RTGS, I don't think you'll part with your $1 or $2 billion for that. So I think we need to constantly review some of these things and see how possibly we can balance out interests and ensure that someone out there is also going to be able to see a wonderful opportunity where they can invest their money. And trust me, Zimbabwe is not the only country in the world. There are several other countries. So the focus now should be why and how can we make it competitive for Zimbabwe to be an investment destination? Because if someone has got 100 million and they look at Zim and the conditions are not perfect, don't think that they won't invest. They'll simply invest in countries where the conditions are perfect. So the conversation, the narrative amongst the policy and the decision makers is how can we make Zimbabwe competitive? How can we make Zimbabwe investment friendly? And how can we inspire more and more people to put Zimbabwe first in terms of their agenda? Trust me, the world has got too much money as we speak right now. There are people who don't know where to put their money. And I think we need to give people a reason why they should invest in Zim. And that's the decision, and that's the role of our policymakers. I think those are my last words. Obviously, I don't want to go into a motivational talk. But yeah, but I really think if we've got something like that, we should be able to even recover and revive our economy. I still think it's possible. So the legal framework has to make sense, and the legal framework has to inspire confidence. Confidence in you, confidence in me, and confidence to all of yours.
There you had it. This was Advocate Adv Marara trying to simplify the Supreme Court judgment so that you and me can understand it better. As I said from the beginning, remember to like our Facebook page so that every time we go live on air, you'll get a notification and you'll never miss some of these exciting news and current affairs program. My name is Robert Tapumane. Join me later. Bye-bye.